We respect, we remember, and revere the people that have cultivated this ground with care. Breathe in, breathe out. You are in the space of literature, language, and love. A few reminders. Take your breaths. We get one at a time, so savor it. Listen to your heart. Let it be your metronome. And read between the lines because fantasy exists between the words. You can write your own story anytime. All you have to do is simply turn the page.
Hi, playing on the set.
To RSVP, sound production, take one.
Welcome to Booked and Beautiful. Welcome to the fabulous San Francisco Public Library. We are here in the Correct Auditorium to introduce to you, to some of you, a new talk show experience here at the library called Booked and Beautiful. My name is sun-jeev, I use they pronouns, and I am so honored to be your host for this incredible new series that we're launched here at the library. Thanks to our incredible relationship with the Hormel LGBTQIA Center, also the queerest library in the world, we're here to present to you an unfiltered, unapologetic, and beautifully queer and colorful conversation between artists, change makers, culture carriers, and just in general, lights in our community. It's my honor and my pleasure to be able to lead these conversations. As an artist, as someone who gets the privilege of performing all over the place, I get to spend a lot of wonderful time with incredible performers, drag performers, artists of all types. And I get to have these enriching, beautiful, wonderful, fulfilling conversations. And I always wish that I could share those with all of you. So this experience, being the host of Booked and Beautiful, is an absolute dream come true to bring this to you. My intention here for this evening is for all of us to simply come to a space where we can hopefully be educated, be empowered, and above all, entertained. Now, how many of you, is this your first visit to the San Francisco Public Library? Oh, yes, I love that. Own it, be proud about it. Well, welcome to one of the most fabulous libraries in the world, along with all of their branches. I'm a little biased, but I'm gonna go with that. The San Francisco Public Library not only offers you a place of respite from the outside world to come in and just find a place to take a breath and take a beat, but a variety of resources and opportunities for you to engage with knowledge, opportunities for you to express yourself, opportunities for you to find your interest in whatever that looks like for you. So I encourage you to check out the library in all of its forms and resources, whether it's online, in person, talking to our incredible team members across the library. They're always here and happy to engage you with resources, just like resources at the Hormel LGBTQIA Center, which we'll talk more about a little bit later. Again, going back to our intention for this evening, my hope is that you are able to come in and relax, enjoy some conversations, and I have a couple of rules for us as we get into this conversation. The first rule is a rule I'm actually gonna break. Now there's this unspoken or very spoken rule that in the library, you're supposed to be quiet. Hence my little whisper drag moment that I came up to. Well, here in the Correct Auditorium at Booked and Beautiful, you are allowed to make as much noise as you want. In fact, it's required. So how about this? On 3, let me hear some of that noise. 1, 2, 3. That is perfect. So when our amazing guest comes out, when you're just feeling it, please feel free to affirm, share your energy, share your joy through clap, laughter, applause, whatever you feel like, signify however you need to. Now the other thing that I want to make sure we're feeling aligned on is to remind us that these are conversations meant to empower us. Whether you're new to conversations of this capacity, meaning we're talking to queer folks and people of their different identities and backgrounds, I want you to be open-minded. The library is a space that can plant seeds into your garden. So my hope tonight is that you can leave here with a couple of new seeds planted and you can water that, nourish it, see it grow. The library is a place of inclusive knowledge. All are welcome and all are supported and all are cared for. All right, friends. Oh my God. Oh, Kevin. Oh, Christina. Oh, I'm sorry. In the moment, I'm having a little bit of a wardrobe malfunction. I just realized I forgot to put a piece of my outfit on. This is embarrassing. It's like having that dream where you're in your underwear or they're in their underwear. I don't know. Give me 1 second. Just actually. Let me make sure I... Tech team, you can still hear me, right? Thank you very much. I feel so much better and so much more complete. Now that I am fully and beautifully adorned for this conversation, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome our guest for this evening. This is someone that I've had the pleasure and privilege of performing with on the circuit many, many moons ago. We're not going to do timing because I'm bad at math, and that's just going to give you indication as to what age bracket I'm in. But many moons ago, we used to perform together a lot, places like the Monster Show, at the Edge, one of the most popular and longest running drag shows in San Francisco. We have crossed paths at places like Oasis and all over the Bay Area. Now this human being has evolved from being an incredible stage performer and a stage presence to having now a global presence by sharing amazing, empowering, and educational content online. You can find them at Taipei Queen online. We'll do some more plugs a little bit later. But this human being has had such a global impact, shares incredible knowledge about the history of really everything, and especially queer fashion, queer culture, drag experiences, all of these wonderful things. So, without any further ado, you're gonna join me making some noise in just a second. But it is, again, my extreme honor, my pleasure, and privilege to welcome the illustrious, the iconic, the influential Taipei. Let's make some noise for Taipei, everybody. That's what we do. That's called queer powers. The gay agenda is in full effect, everybody. Hey, welcome to Books and Beautiful. Shall we get a little comfy?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, the beat. The beat is beating. Can we make some noise for the mud? Also, girl, twins. Mask for mask.
Yes.
Oh, it's gonna be a mask for
absolutely.
mask kind of evening.
And it's so inspiring to see so many of you here came wearing a mask. That is so fabulous.
We love the mask for mask community.
Absolutely.
Should we talk about our fashion choices this evening?
Yes, I think we
love
should.
it. I think
Yeah.
we're twinning, so might as well have a conversation about it.
Yes. Yeah. So as many of you know, if you have seen my videos on the internet, aka the worst place in the world, masking is something that's very important to me. This is something that is very important to members of the disability community, folks who are chronically ill. As many of you know, COVID-19 is still a very real threat. I personally have long COVID, and it's something that took away a lot of my ability to take long walks and hikes and gave me a lot of really serious breathing issues. So long COVID continues to be a threat even for people who may not be immune compromised, even for people who are vaccinated. It's believed it may be as common as 20% of all infections. And many people continue to be vulnerable to severe COVID, so folks who are immune compromised, people for whom the vaccine may not be effective. And for many of those people, public spaces have become even more inaccessible. So it's very important not just to protect myself and all of you and my fabulous co-host, but also to be mindful of the people who really need that protection and that care. So I'm so grateful to all of you who've chosen to wear a mask, and I want to just encourage everyone to learn more about this and and think about incorporating this into your everyday life. If I could do it in all of this on,
yes.
I don't know what excuse you normies have.
Yes, painted for the gods and still masked all the way up.
Well, it means I don't have to put on lipstick. So
We don't tell them those secrets.
never
She's
know.
fully drawn on underneath, I promise. We have the lips overdrawn and all of it.
yeah, really, it's just an excuse. I got a lot of lip filler yesterday.
Yes.
So it's a little swollen, so this way none of you can see.
Masks are great for helping us protect public health and hiding some dental work.
Yes.
I love this, Taipei. You illustrate something so beautiful is to not only consider ourselves and our impact on our own health and to be mindful of how we navigate communities, but having that understanding, compassion, and empathy for others, looking out for community. Right? We might have different privileges or abilities that others may not have access to or have, and sometimes it is just taking the time to think, can I do something that's going to help make the world a little bit better or accessible for other people?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so much of what public health and accessibility is about. Is it's not just all about personal choice and making the choices that are right for you. Your choices, whether you like it or not, impact other people. So thinking about how to keep not only yourself safe, but the people around you safe, and fostering that environment that prioritizes disabled people who are so often kicked to the curb.
Absolutely. Thank you for naming that. And this now, again, thank you all for just wearing masks and just showing up in this way. We really appreciate your just support and care for this. As we get into this conversation, I just want to share that I use any pronouns, whatever feels comfortable, whatever comes to mind. Are there pronouns that I can refer to you using today?
Yeah, everyone's using pronouns these days. As Taipei, I use she, her pronouns.
Wonderful, so she, her, it is. And now usually when I have conversation, the word girl slips out. It's a term of endearment for me, not a gendered word. But if that doesn't feel good to you, I'm happy to remove that.
That's great, and I hope when you use it for me, it is a gendered word in this instance.
I love it. Fabulous. So I also want to be able to showcase that Booked and Beautiful is not only a place for great conversations, but we can also model and illustrate what it means to have easy conversations, to ask how people want to be referred to as, or can I wear a mask to make you feel more comfortable and accessible? In the world that we live in, my friends, we have to think about each other. It is absolutely okay to be selfish in the best form of that, to nourish ourselves, to take care of ourselves, to pour into ourselves, so that way we can then pour out into others and to be generous with our time and our resources and our ability. So, as we get into this conversation, hopefully you can glean a few great things about our incredible guest, but also just to take away a few little tips, tricks, techniques on how to navigate the world and just really meet folks where they're at. Let's get into it.
Yes.
You are just an icon and a present. Can we, before we begin, plug your Instagram. Everybody, if you have access to a device and you want to get on the Instagrams, how can they find you?
Sure, so you all can find me at Taipei Queen. Taipei is the capital of Taiwan, spelled Taipei. It was a little sort of harkering back to our days in nightlife. People often didn't know what that was, didn't know how to spell it, had never heard of Taiwan or Taipei as a place, which we can maybe get into. So Taipei Queen, and as a little anecdote, because as you are probably realizing very quickly, I'm a very rambly person. This is why my content is always scripted. As a little anecdote, I tried to see if I could get the username Taipei on Instagram, and I was like, I bet like the city of Taipei has taken that. No, it's some literal random guy who signed up for Instagram like in like the first year it started and hasn't been active in like 11 years. So I thought that was hilarious. So that's why a lot of people think my name is Taipei Queen, but it was just the username. Anyway, you all can find me at Taipei Queen at Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Patreon, Coffee, everywhere. Coffee meets bagel, everywhere.
All of that, and the content that you produce, as some of you will see as you start exploring Taipei's Instagram, is so empowering, so educational. You create these incredible, I'd say like, I don't know what we call them in the internet world, longish form videos, reels, that give us an experience in understanding different cultural moments, whether it's the history of fashion, understanding sequins. Obsessed, because I love a sequin. Obsessed with that. Harkening back to different references across queer culture. You really utilize Instagram as a place to showcase the technology that queer people have built into fashion, makeup, artistry like drag, and it's also the ancestral stories that get imbued within these things. And what you're doing is, in my opinion, sort of in my professional opinion, is you're making more than just content. you are carrying the stories and allowing that to be exposed to a whole new generation of people that otherwise wouldn't get that from being in community. How do you feel just knowing that you have that big of an impact? Start with the easy question.
Well, first of all, thank you, SNJV. That's so sweet and lovely of you. Yeah, I mean, I always say that I kind of use, in my content, my philosophy is to use fun cultural topics, whether that be fashion, music, film history. I'm using that as a bit of a Trojan horse to teach everyone history, because that's how I really love. I mean, I love all those other fun gay things, but to me, it's not interesting to divorce cultural history from, like, nitty-gritty, deeper history. Those things are so intertwined, and it all becomes so much richer when you understand that war and discrimination and oppression and economics and immigration and all of these things shape our aesthetic world, and that those two make each other so much more interesting and colorful.
Absolutely. I think there's this phrase right now that's being on the recession pop or recession indicator. There's all these like memes throwing around there. But you showcase how history, external events, politics influence how we dress, how we express, how we share our identities, whether in full view or in the guise of safety and having to protect ourselves. And so again, that is an incredible body of work that you produce from a passion like history. Now I'm gonna venture to ask, what's your intention behind what you do and create?
Yeah, wow. So I think to answer that, I have to get a little bit into kind of my story in terms of how I got started making content. So I've been doing drag now for, we're pushing 11 years. I started when I was 4, and so for many years, when we were sort of overlapping back in the 2010s, the millennial heyday, with the skinny jeans and the Chelsea boots, I was a local girl, and I was having a great time performing in clubs and whatnot. And then after 2020, a lot of those spaces became inaccessible to me because they often, frankly, don't have the resources to make them have any like level of COVID safety. So that's a long-term goal of mine, is trying to foster like in-person spaces like this that are more COVID conscious. So with that said, I was in a phase of my life in 2023 where I left my previous job. I really wanted to try to do something creative, but I was having a lot of health problems, and I was like, what can I do that works for me where I'm at right now? So I started making videos, and I have to credit, if you know Polly Amber Ross, a fabulous performer in the San Francisco scene. We had a conversation for coffee, and Polly told me that people are interested in not so much the what, but the why and the how. And that literally changed the trajectory of my career over the last few years, and I really took that philosophy and started explaining what I was doing. So all that said, I didn't start with an intention. I was like, how can I continue to do drag, do something artistic, and figure out a way to make a living off of it? And as that happened, I felt compelled to also incorporate these important messages. I think especially with the beginning of the genocide in Gaza in October 2023, that there was no other option other than to talk about that and incorporate other really important causes. I couldn't imagine making silly videos on the internet and pretending that nothing is going on in the world. Maybe some people can do that, but that's not what I do.
Well, you highlight something great as a content creator, is knowing sort of when to read the room and read the environment and to read the external experiences, and how you advocate for communities and the atrocities of the world is so creative. And it really allows it to be understood with the intention, because you will create a whole video around it or a whole sort of aesthetic moment, which I think that reaches much more people. In my opinion, we're in that space of just unfortunate fatigue of so much negativity happening in the world, and I feel it, friends, and we can be honest in this space where sometimes we feel like just turning it all off. Right? And while that is a real place to be, sometimes that's also a privilege that we want to name, is that we can turn it off. But there are places where they can't turn the atrocities off. So your highlighting of some of the challenges and how we can provide our support is incredibly impactful. And I hope you know, no pressure, you're saving lives just with what you're doing, with who you are and what you're bringing to the table. So I really appreciate you for that. I heard an applause. I love that. Makes it
Well, thank you. I take having a platform really seriously, and it's not, I've been a one-woman show this whole time, and it's very surreal to feel like a publicist and like I'm an elected official, and I have to curate my statements and think about the impact. And while that is important to me, sometimes I reflect on like, oh, I'm not a celebrity. Like, there's not a team behind me, and then watching other people on social media, have the attitude of saying whatever and doing and saying horrible things. So yeah, it's a very surreal experience being in this very chaotic environment that is social media.
Now, going back to the drag element again, because that's something that is just such a beautiful, I love that you utilize it as a Trojan horse to really think about how to get the message out there through an entertainment, through sort of this flashy way of doing it. And I often talk about the definition of drag in my work and really touch on it in terms of conversations and really try to open up the conversation around what drag really is defined as. A lot of folks in sort of the general population really see drag as maybe gender performance or what they see on television. Drag is really at the forefront of a lot of entertainment because of television shows, which put it there, which is so great. We love that, right? As a queer art form, as a subversive art form, for us to get mainstream recognition is solid, it's great. Now the shade is coming around the corner. That provides people a limited, tiny view into the real world of what drag really is. It's not always high polish, high production, big budgets, all of that. I like to define drag as, yes, it can be a character, it can be a caricature, it can certainly be a departure from you as your core identity, but I like to think of drag in my definition as understanding the core of yourself. Understanding that you are a spirit, an energy, a soul, whatever we want to define it, in the midst of all the identities that we hold, and we shine our light through different identities, like a kaleidoscope, and that identity then comes into focus. And as drag performers, we can adorn it, we can highlight it, we can make it brighter, we can utilize artifice to share a story, but I'm curious to know what your definition of drag is here in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, all drag is valid, as we know. Yeah, I think, there's been endless conversation about what drag is and isn't, and especially here in the Bay Area, people have a very expansive and sometimes divisive view on drag. So I know what drag means to me, and certainly other people have other ideas or have a whole broad sense of it. I think for me, I'm obsessed with drag as a craft. That's, I think, what has kept me doing this for so long. I have been obsessed with makeup and femininity. When I was like 3 years old, I used to wear my blankie, like I tore holes in it and like wore it as my mom called it a toga, but it was really just like an evening gown.
Yes.
A column dress. I'm obsessed with learning how to style hair and style outfits and sew and do makeup. And to me, it's just so fabulous and artistically satisfying. It's fun to be able to control all of the aspects of performance and have total sort of creative power over something. And yeah, I kind of just do it, I guess. Like I think for some people, thinking about what their drag means or why they're doing it is sometimes like people get stuck in the thinking about the art. And that's like my number one advice to people who want to do something creative is just do it, and you will figure out eventually what is the point or what exactly you want to do. Doing it is more fun than thinking about it, is what I'm saying.
Doing it is more fun than thinking about it. Sometimes we get in that rumination, right? I'm gonna do it then. I mean, it could be something as grand as drag, or I'll do the laundry then, or I'll apply for that grant then, I'll do it then. But sometimes just doing it can get us out into that cycle of this is actually yielding something great.
And drag is not that serious. There may be other art forms or other pursuits that are super serious. I had I was doing a online digital event with the university, which by the way I am available for. And someone asked for folks who were starting out in drag, how would you recommend people figure out their name? And I was honestly, girl, I just copied someone else. I was I'm half Taiwanese, so I'm gonna name myself after the capital of an island nation in Asia, and you can maybe figure out if there's any other famous drag queens who have done that exact same thing. And so I just copied someone else, and I went with it, and then it stuck. And then it became its own thing. But yeah, I'm if you want to do drag, just do it. Just run out there. You're not going to be good for the first while anyway. So like, don't worry about it. Just be bad and have fun.
That's with any skill set, my friends. I know we start a new skill set or new whatever it is, and we're like, I'm going to be the perfect thing at it. I'm just going to be perfect. Well, there's a learning curve. We want to give ourselves grace in those moments where you look back and you're like, yeah, wow, I didn't blend. I didn't know how to blend, or I didn't know how to match. And I think we kind of came up in an era where the cusp was like digital was kind of coming up, but there was still sort of that analog experience. So I think there's just now drag performers are coming up, there's a lot more pictures. There's a lot more like feedback that's given, and I'm glad I skipped that part of my early days.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have to measure yourself by the ruler set by a certain TV show that, has done a lot for promoting drag to a mainstream audience, but that was very freeing when I realized like, oh, I can do my own thing and be successful in my own way.
You really kind of show that message even outside of the experience of drag. So whatever that looks like for you, whatever resonates within you, that gives you that passion, that joy, that unconditional care and love for yourself, even when times are challenging, even when life is lifing and you have to pivot in the moment, to really hear Taipei's story and understand that there was a moment that you needed to pivot and you're like, what am I going to do? And you realize that there was a skill set, there's a toolbox of resources to be able to access. Always within all of us, but also places like the library can also help you figure out what's next. Right? It can help you form all that. Now you talk about drag in such a passionate way, and one thing that I resonate with is how you talk about the structuring of drag. I firmly believe that drag's art form is engineering. You have to engineer and architect an image, a story, a fantasy, an experience, whatever that looks like for you, even if it is the purest form of yourself, there's still a bit of artifice that we have to showcase here. Now, as you talk to more people or as you share your content out there, there's a lot of, I try not to read comments, but on your work, I'm just such a fan, so I'm like, yes, and everybody's so affirmative. How do you start kind of sharing that knowledge that drag is much more than just lip gloss and twirling around, that it is actual engineering, it's science behind it?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think, my content really hasn't had an emphasis on showcasing the drag I do in a way. I always think that I sort of started doing content after the beauty tutorial world had ended. My sister had already happened, and the age of making makeup tutorials was don't do well online anymore. Instead, people want endless commentary. So I will happily yap about stuff. But no, it's really fun to share sort of the creative elements of drag, and if anything, I think a lot of it I don't share, because sometimes for me, filming stuff kind of ruins it. If I'm sewing or working on a wig, I may be working on this for weeks, and in the middle of the night and at weird times, and I look very glamorous now, but I look like a goblet when I'm at home. Some people in the audience know me in person. I'm in sweatpants that are dirty, my hair is wild, I wear the same sweatshirt all the time. So it's actually kind of a privilege to be able to have that creative space and just sit in it and just be I'm focused on this. But yeah, I'm extremely meticulous about the drag that I do, and it is fun to share those little those tidbits of here's how we do this, and here's how we work on that.
Well, you're exposing the art form to so many people that might be interested in embodying that art form, but also just as knowledge. Even if you don't want to do drag, or you're it's there, but the knowledge on these videos and just the content is so satisfying and so juicy. So now thinking about the work that you do inadvertently touches not only communities locally, but globally. What does community mean to you, sort of at a high level?
Wow, I mean, and I know communities is a big buzzword, especially in this country. I think, making content is such a interesting, social and psychological experience, where for me, oftentimes, community is kind of abstract. I'm talking about these people's issues that I don't, tangibly interact with on a day-to-day basis. And frankly, often making content is very lonely. I work from home and by myself. So it's wonderful to be able to see people and collaborate with other human beings, but making content is very much like a one-way mirror. So even though it's lovely to have comments and people send me lovely messages, and I do really appreciate it, it is not the same as, basically it's not actual community. The internet, at least as from a content creator's perspective, is a parasocial environment, which is not community. So all that to say is, I am not an expert on what community is or isn't, but nonetheless, it's important for me to talk about those issues, and I trust other people who are on the ground, learning about these things, reporting on them, and I'm well, this is important to them, I'll take their word for it, and sort of relay the message to the platform that I'm privileged to have.
As we get prepped for our next segment, I have a couple more questions I'm just dying to know. Has there been any content you created that you would consider a flop? You're like, oh, why did I do that?
Oh wow, that's a great question. I mean,
I went for it.
I think it's tough making content because there's a big difference between the content that I am really excited about and I think is really sickening, and the content that the people, like the algorithm likes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't like this video, but I worked on it, I'll release it anyway. And it does great. And other times I'm like, this is so sickening, people are gonna love it, like it's gonna do so well, and then it does terribly. So, honestly, I don't know. If anything, like I have never figured out how to predict what people are gonna like or not like, so I kind of just throw it out there, and I'm like, you know, I have my looks or my videos that I personally enjoy. But yeah, those don't always match up. So I sort of feel like it takes a life of its own after I release it, I guess.
I love that. Well, you highlight something that all artists go through, whether you're in this sort of tangible form or painting, creating, doing drag, or however you want to display work, is that I firmly believe that once I'm done creating a performance and I perform it, it's not mine anymore. It is a gift to whoever received it,
Yeah.
and how it evolves, it's on its own, but I have birthed it, and I'm removing myself from the narrative.
Yeah, and it's something I learned for a long time. I actually was very serious about classical music. I played the viola, which is a big violin, and I learned at a summer camp in high school that someone was doing a master class, and after she finished, she had this like horrible scowl on her face. And the person giving the master class was like, don't do that, because to the audience, like you need to sell this. And like to most audiences, they don't know that you messed up. They don't, like, you are aware of all those like criticisms, so like just sell it. Like that's show business, is like whatever I put out, I'm like, this is the best thing ever, you guys. Like, isn't this great? Like, because if I say this is horrible, then that, like, you all will start to believe that. So yeah, basically just fake it till you make it.
It's to make it embody the energy that you know is confident with whatever you're doing, whether you're presenting at work, you're making a meal for your loved ones, or you're trying to do something new. Sometimes it is just saying, this is the best we're gonna have it right now, let's do it. As a drag performer, sometimes I'm held together with duct tape and a prayer, and I gotta get out there and entertain this sold out crowd, right? And you just have to just do it.
Yeah.
And it takes that acknowledgement that they don't know what I'm thinking, or they don't know what I choreographed, or they don't know what I wrote on my notes. So sometimes it is giving ourselves that grace in trying something new or something that we're familiar at, and just saying, it's gonna get out there how it needs to get out there. It's progress over perfection, it's always about the intention with which you provided. So you highlight that beautifully, but also this is always perfection. Even back in the good old days, when we used to perform together, there was just always this wonderful presence in the dressing rooms, on the stages, and your makeup has always been flawless. But one of the things that one of the many things that I love about you, especially as a live performer, which again, being very privileged to see, as you've evolved into this new era, you have such focus during your performances that truly impresses me, and just, I take notes. Like, that's how you hit that note. That's how you do it. There's a knowing, there's a confidence in you that comes out so beautifully on stage. So if you all want to do some digging on Taipei's Instagram, there are some videos from back in the day where you're able to see the performance prowess, and it's just absolutely wonderful. So it's no surprise that your content, a part of your soul that you're sharing with people, is really hitting just as magically as your live performance.
Well, thank you so much for what a glowing review, and also for editing only the exciting parts from my days as a local girl. I was very much in the dressing room, didn't talk to people much because I would be in the chair in the attic at the edge with the light, taking selfies for like half an hour. Like the whole time when other people were performing, I was just taking selfies, which is not the worst thing to do backstage. No, and I always say I can't really dance. I'm not physically coordinated, so I was like, I need to lip sync really well. And I don't have reveals. I don't have like backup dancers. I feel like a lot of people can be very intimidating when people are doing. Performers like sun-jeev has the incredible choreography, like group numbers, like when there's all these theatrics going on stage. So I'm like, well, if I'm just gonna hold still, I need to look really good, and I need to just stare at people and make them feel something, and that's my strategy.
There is a power in that. I think as performers, if there's any budding performers here, or you feel like you want to grow your skill on stage, the power in stillness is a huge one. I think often when we're on stage, it's for a big crowd, you want to have like the little sort of fast feet. You want to just be moving a lot because the energy is moving through you. But if you can root yourself and take that vision and look straight at that cue and hold it, maybe the audience is gagging. They're getting their life. Okay, as we're preparing for our next segment, I want to ask one last question. What is the next chapter for Taipei?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, I'm just continuing to put stuff out there on the internet and hope people love it. And yeah, I don't know. I'm very much at a unique phase at this point in my career. To be very transparent with you all, I'm very fortunate to have grown a platform, but financially, the work I do has really been a struggle. If you notice me on my stories, I'm always like, hi, I have a Patreon, come subscribe. Not everyone who's a quote-unquote successful influencer is making any money. So I'm very much in the money-making phase of my career, and yeah, we're just trying to make this work and balance what is artistically and ethically important to me, and what does capitalism not pay for. So that works. So basically, I'm just making it up as I go. I have no idea.
Be honest, be real, and we're all, I think I can assume for all of us, we're feeling that, right? We want to maintain our morals, our values, we want to do good in this world, which we all are. You started here, check plus. But then how do we balance capitalism? Because we gotta make the money.
Yeah, my landlord doesn't accept, I have so many followers, my landlord doesn't accept followers as rent, which I think is so helpful.
Yeah, I know, it would be great to translate followers to rent. Okay, Taipei has something very special for us to not only, again, entertain us, educate us, empower us, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make my way off the stage so Taipei can take the stage and give us the old razzle-dazzle with some amazing knowledge. Let's just give another round of applause. Official, we live. You want to give them a twirl?
1940s. Thank you, Alameda. Is it Alameda Antique Fair?
Yes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again so much for coming and having me. So I wanted to take this time to tell you a little bit about the history of disco. Just a quick check, because I've transitioned over here. Everyone can still hear me okay? Okay, fabulous. I know we're maybe running a little bit. Are we running a little bit behind? Do we need to zoom? We're good? Okay, fabulous. So as I mentioned, my sort of goal or strategy, my goal in making content is to take fun cultural topics, whether that be fashion or in this case music, and then use that to teach you a little bit about history. So through the history of disco, we're gonna learn about the conservative backlash to a growth in civil rights and artistic expression and cultural capital of various communities in the 1970s. I also want to mention this is an abridged version of a talk that I've prepared for speaking engagements for an hour long. So if y'all would like to hear more about this at your organization or university, I would love to help you out with that. So before I get started, I do want to provide a quick content warning. We are going to touch some sensitive topics, namely anti-Black racism, homophobia and transphobia, as well as HIV and AIDS. We're not going to show any graphic depictions, but we just do ask that you do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. So before we get started with the presentation, I want to get everyone in the mood to think about disco music. Let's watch a performance of the iconic Donna Summer performing Last Dance on Dick Clark's Live Wednesday in 1978. This will be about a minute long.
Last
thinking? What did we all think of Donna Summer? Incredible. If only my drag performances were that caliber. So one of the things that I always like to do is to watch pieces of popular culture with a critical lens. And in this case, something that really stands out to me is not only Donna Summer's amazing vocals and her fabulous glittery outfit, but also the audience. This TV audience is thrilled to see her. They want to touch her, they want to breathe her and be in her presence. And I think that's a testament not just to how famous Donna Summer was, but what a phenomenon disco was. So with that, I want to get into the humble origins of disco. Disco was first and foremost a music and nightlife movement that began in the early 1970s in two American cities, New York and Philadelphia. It grew out of queer nightlife. And keep in mind, this is a time that was very early on in the gay liberation movement. Stonewall had happened in just 1969, the Compton Cafeteria riots in 1966, I want to say. And so gay establishments, queer establishments continued to face severe police harassment and all forms of discrimination. So that meant that these nightlife spaces, in particular underground parties, were a place where people could gather and find community where they couldn't find acceptance out on the street. And you had a mix of people coming, particularly Black, Latinx, and LGBTQ plus communities coming together in these parties. And they were coming not just for that community, but for the music that was being pioneered by DJs or disc jockeys like David Mancuso. David Mancuso was one of the most important early disco DJs, and he was known for his party, The Loft, in New York City. But before I move on, I want to emphasize that no one person invented disco. No one party invented disco. It was a collaborative effort between a small number of nightlife scenes and brilliant DJs. So what was early disco music like? It was truly a global set of influences. So we have DJs like David Mancuso, who are finding all of these different references to combine. In the early days of disco, artists weren't making disco music and releasing it. Instead, these DJs were creating custom mixes and performing them, essentially live in the club. And this is before Google, so they had to scour literal record stores in order to find the coolest samples. Now, these DJs did pull from music of all genres all over the world, but I want to emphasize that at its core, disco is Black American music. Some of the most important influences in disco music were funk and soul. For example, Philadelphia soul is where disco gets those incredible string arrangements that are so iconic in disco. We also have references to African pop music. The song Soul Makossa by Manu Dibango was heavily sampled in disco music. We also have references to Latin American dance music for percussive or rhythmic motifs. So we mentioned how disco began in the queer nightlife scene in these two cities, and it was very niche to begin with. So how did it become a mainstream phenomenon? Because you all have heard of disco, right? While it started out as an underground scene, it organically grew in popularity throughout the mid-1970s. So you started to have artists releasing music for club play. One of the first examples of that is Never Can Say Goodbye by Gloria Gaynor in 1975. This means that you don't necessarily need the hottest DJ to play disco music. You can just put the record on and play it. So discotheques started to spread all across the country. And in 1977, disco would reach global domination due to two things: the release of the popular film Saturday Night Fever in 1977. If you've ever wondered why when people want to do disco dancing, they do this, that comes from that movie. The second is the opening of Studio 54, which took disco from an underground scene to a celebrity level. I want to also emphasize that disco provided a rare window of opportunity for LGBTQ plus artists as well as listeners. One of those people to mention is Sylvester, who was a fabulous artist. He didn't only do disco, but one of his most well-known songs is a disco song. He presented as feminine. He was known for, in his graduation photo, wore like a beehive and a beautiful chiffon dress, and was a pillar of the queer community here in San Francisco. The Village People, in case you didn't know that they were gay, they were very gay, intentionally so. Their songs, including songs like not just YMCA, but Cruisin' and Macho Man, are in fact intentionally homoerotic. And then many of the important gay anthems that have stayed with us today are disco songs, including the iconic I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. So we've discussed how disco had its origins in gay nightlife and in Black music, and how it ascended to mainstream popularity. But I want to talk about the backlash to this. So in the late 1970s, we have the Disco Sucks movement. And there are multiple elements behind this, but arguably the most important motivation is a conservative backlash against Black people, queers, and women gaining cultural capital. For so many years, many other musical genres were dominated by white men, and disco wasn't, and that pissed some people off. One of the most famous events as part of the disco backlash was Disco Demolition Night. This was an event in 1979 where people brought disco records to a White Sox game, and it devolved into a riot where these records were being destroyed with baseball bats and explosives. And this included records of all genres from Black artists, which really tells you something about the racist undertones of this movement. And unfortunately, this event was widely publicized and was really seen as the death of disco on American charts. So record labels largely abandoned the genre, and it plummeted from American Billboard charts. I want to also quickly touch on how HIV and AIDS impacted the communities who were a part of disco. So HIV emerged as a new illness as early as the 1960s, but really in the 1980s started to spread in urban centers. And while all kinds of people did get AIDS during this time, and people can still continue to get it, it disproportionately affected certain communities, and specifically men who have sex with men were specifically devastated. And before the development of effective therapies, HIV was very deadly and thought of as a death sentence. And by 1995, 10% of gay men aged 25 to 44 had died of AIDS. Additionally, they faced severe legal discrimination. So different pillars of the disco community dealt with this differently. For example, back to Sylvester, he was open about his HIV diagnosis, and he advocated for not only how we need to talk about HIV and AIDS, but how it was specifically affecting the Black community. On the other side of things, we have Steve Rubell, who was one of the co-owners of Studio 54. He was not open about his diagnosis, which was not uncommon for people back then. And when he died, he told the media that he was dying of hepatitis. Reportedly, even his own parents didn't know that he was dying of AIDS. So that shows you a snippet into the variety of experiences of how people dealt with the discrimination and shame and threat to their lives. So I realize that's pretty heavy, but I want to emphasize that even though the audiences and the artists of disco faced enormous challenges, the dance never ended, and disco really continued to live on. First of all, disco would continue to influence future musical genres. Many of the DJs who were part of the disco scene would go on to pioneer other genres like house music, as well as synth pop, and it even influenced hip hop in the 1980s. Also, the Disco Sucks movement was largely American. So disco, by the mid-1970s, had already spread to the entire world. So in Europe and in Asia, disco continued to be super popular. You have, of course, I hope you all know ABBA. They were a very influential group in promoting Euro disco. And many of you are probably also fans of City Pop. If you know Plastic Love by Maria Takeuchi, City Pop is a blend of American music, including disco. And it's really had a resurgence on the internet in the last 10 years. And people in history forget. So by the 1990s, even in America, people had forgotten that they hated disco or that it sucked. And instead we're focused on why the 80s sucked. So disco really has had a comeback and has been a recurring part of popular culture ever since then. With that, I know we have to go fairly quickly, but I just want to quickly mention that since we're at the library and we're all about reading and learning, that there are some further resources for your learning. I'll try to link these on my social media somewhere so you can get them later on. But one book that you can actually get from the library is Love Saves the Day by Tim Lawrence. It is a book, one of the more well-known books about the history of disco. Wonderful take on this, and maybe if all of you try to check it out, maybe the library will get some more copies so that more people can learn about this. And also, if you're very interested in video essays, you like video content, this video essay, The Untold History of Disco, is a really fabulous place to start.